live. Do it live.
That's okay.
Get you to scooch in a little bit. Where can you?
Don't need headphones. Won't have to take it.
Yes.
So no big deal.
All right. Let's try to get this done here. Can't see Vern.
You can't see Vern.
I can't see Vern.
Oh, you doing
What do you want me to do?
Yeah,
podcast,
can everyone kind of move? Yeah, can everyone move over a little bit?
Okay.
Okay, so
All right. Here we go.
Can you see me now?
can you see me? Yes, we can see
Okay.
you now.
All right.
All right.
There you
Do
go.
like that.
Good deal.
There's that handsome face.
All right.
Okay, you guys ready? So what we'll do is we'll say how we're going to talk about the Super Bowl.
Sure, of course.
But we also want to introduce Kerry because he got some interesting things about lacrosse.
Sure.
Be kind of neat.
Yeah.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
Let's do it to it.
Away we go. Welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Bruce McGowan, longtime sports radio personality, and Vern Glenn from CBS affiliate KPIX TV in San Francisco. At each commercial break, we're going to ask a sports trivia question, and you can listen to Sports Econ 101 on iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Sports Byline USA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, obviously, we will be talking about the Super Bowl today, but we do have a special guest coming on the next segment, Kerry Ettinger, who's going to teach us about lacrosse.
Yeah, one of America's original sports, and it really truly has its roots going back to, God, I don't know. Kerry would be more.
He's got all
He's
the
going to have
info.
to tell us. But I know it was played well before our ancestors came here from Europe.
Yeah,
In some form or other.
That's
Wasn't
it.
Kerry?
That's right. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
it. Okay.
Yeah.
And
I don't want to brag or anything, but you are talking to a University of Virginia alum, Virginia, one of the hotbed
Oh,
states
yeah.
for lacrosse,
That's right.
Yeah.
having spent, as we on the air are adjusting my microphone.
yes.
But hey, lacrosse is it was big in high school, certainly big in Virginia, all across the Eastern Seaboard, and yeah, I'm just pleased to have our guest to sit here and talk about it because it is to the point now, and you can speak to this, that the top players in California, where we do the show now,
Yeah.
are all gravitating to the east because that's
Yeah.
where the programs are.
That's right.
They just they come in and they just poach the best players
Mhm.
to keep them from staying in state.
And I got to get a plug in for the University of Denver, where I went to
Oh,
school. We had
yeah.
a club sport there.
That's another power.
Yeah, we had a club sport there when I was there. It wasn't a big deal. Now, the University of Denver has one of the top programs in the country.
That's
I
right.
always get the alumni information.
But
That's
you're,
right.
you're giving all of Kerry's tidbits away.
No,
no.
He's
He's
got
gonna
a lot of
pick up
good
on it.
stuff for us here.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, and obviously,
Yeah.
again, we'll talk about the Super Bowl, even though it was a little bit of a ho hum.
I didn't think so. I like a
Oh,
defensive struggle. It's like watching a 1-0 game in Pitt. I mean, it was down to the last
I know.
couple of minutes.
I know. You get to a game, you get to the seventh inning, they say it's 0-0, and you go, "Yeah, I didn't miss a thing."
Hey, listen,
Okay.
I've been at 10 Super Bowls. I've seen some bad ones.
I know. I know. There
Blowouts
definitely
are
were
bad.
some
That was not a
moments.
blowout.
Okay, stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back.
By the way, I saw your spot, Vernon. That was great. Up at the. In the
Oh, the Viking?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there all day and all night.
I had a bad feeling that Jared Goff, because it's his first time,
Yeah.
24 years old. I had a bad feeling this was going to happen.
Me too.
Why?
It wasn't well because I thought relative inexperience. You got Belichick, who's been to 9 Super Bowls now, and it's Brady. But it was more than that. It was just the defensive scheme that they put out there,
Yeah.
and the way they executed it. They couldn't figure out where these guys were coming from.
Mhm.
I mean, they were shooting gaps. They were.
See, that's where and we can get into it on the air. But that's my thing. I don't think the fact that it was the Super Bowl and it was the grand stage, I don't think it had anything to do with it. I think it was Belichick
Yeah.
with 30 years experience being a
Exactly.
defensive specialist
Thank you.
saying, all right, kid,
Yeah.
these are the looks we're going to give you.
Yeah. And you better make
just
an
try and beat
adjustment.
us.
Well,
try to
and
beat
the
us,
thing is, the Saints Rams game. I mean, that would make you nervous too. I mean, that's getting to the championship game. So if you're going to have
Yeah.
nerves, it would be there too. But he did look like he was a little bit. I don't want to say deer in headlights.
Well,
but
he had a lot of
definitely.
pressure on him.
He
How
did,
many
he
times did he get hit?
Well, if you
Yeah,
get,
yeah.
but Edward,
And
if
that
you,
offensive line
if you
did do a
do
really
this
good
show
job.
with a hand in your face
Yeah.
and you can't look at your cues and your
Yeah.
times
Oh,
like
yeah.
that, you're going to struggle.
Oh,
I wouldn't. I
absolutely.
don't blame
Yeah,
Goff.
tall.
I blame the
I mean,
offensive line
Yeah.
for not making the adjustments.
Absolutely.
It's always one at the line.
Well, when they showed, and they would show it like a little bit more from his perspective, even though he's tall, all these hands were up.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't even see the offensive receiver.
How about that play by Devin
these
McCourty,
guys are
too?
6'5", 6'6" for
Yeah.
a reason.
Yeah.
How about that
Yeah.
cat by that play
And
by
they
Devin
can jump.
McCourty that knocked that touchdown pass down at the last second? That was a hell of a play.
And you know what's funny? missed
Yeah.
field goal cost me $100.
Ooh.
I had the square. And
Oh.
he never misses.
Yeah.
He's a great kicker.
Yeah, and he had just and Jim Nance had just said, "Hey, he's 31 for 31."
Yeah,
Well,
thanks, Jim.
there
And then
had been a missed
Romo
field
got
goal.
on him
There
for
had been-
saying that, and then he missed the field goal.
And there had been a missed field goal in that stadium all season long. Did
Is
you know
that right?
There had not been a missed field goal in that stadium all season.
I didn't know that.
Not a single one.
That's interesting stuff. Okay.
All right.
All right. Oh, good stuff here.
Yeah, it's always fun. Vernon and I never get bored with this stuff, do we, Vern?
Ever,
No.
never.
No, yeah,
Well,
how can
it's
you?
always changing.
It's always
there's
changing.
New,
It's
new
fun.
stuff going on.
Compared to politics?
Please. Okay. You ready?
Yes.
Here we go. Well, welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown here along with Bruce McGowan, Vern Glenn, and our special guest, Kerry Ettinger.
Ready to face off with him.
That's right.
He's
Let's
mine.
do this.
Yeah.
Let's do this,
We'll let him have a few words in here because Vern and I are just, we're so enthusiastic. I have to say, I didn't think it was that bad a game. As I said, I've been lucky enough to cover 10 Super Bowls. I've seen 6 or 7 have been blowouts. At least that game was interesting. At least that game had some drama. You know,
Well, the previous, 6 games were really, really
they were
good.
really good. So we were due for one that was going to be.
We're defined really good. I mean, I got issues about this. Maybe it's this chair that makes you cranky. Because Bruce
I got the nicer
sitting here,
chair.
yeah, you're getting yourself up.
Yeah.
But I'm just real sensitive about this stuff
Yeah.
because I have respect for these coaches that spend 80 to 90 hours a week
Yep.
getting ready for one game
Yeah.
with all different kinds of scenarios and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so for just a casual fan to say, "Oh, well, it was good," or "it was bad," I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, what do you mean?"
Yeah.
You know. So anyway,
I
I guess
agree.
that's just my.
Couldn't agree
That's
with
Well,
just
you want to see
my
exciting.
thing.
Come on, you want to see exciting plays. A really good catch. Really good run back punt. For
A fan wants to see an exciting game, Edward, but a player wants to win the game.
Oh,
The
true.
player
of
doesn't
course.
care whether he has 1 point, just as long as you have 1 point better than the other. I don't care if it's
I agree.
5-4. They're the champions.
I mentioned that great play by Devin McCourty that saved the touchdown. I mean, you
Yeah.
could have had a more dramatic and exciting play
Yes,
to watch.
That's right.
That was just
that was
an example.
one really, really
Yeah.
good play.
Well, it's, whenever you have a defensive-oriented game and you have these amazing defensive teams, it's going to be boring for the fans, but still, it's an amazing game.
Yeah.
It's like a 1-0 pitcher's duel, as I said before. And
That's
I've
right.
never found
We're
those
going to
to be
talk
boring.
more about the Super Bowl, but right
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
let's get to our guest.
Yes.
All right, let's get
Kerry
into it.
Ettinger.
Because lacrosse season, I mean, it really gets ramped up this
It just started.
weekend.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you're just mentioning about defensive, and I'm
Mhm.
thinking, I think of lacrosse. I know just a little bit about it, but when I've watched like highlights, it's like it's really hard. It seems like it's really hard to be a defensive game. You know what I mean? It always seems like it's offense.
Well,
Yeah.
it feels that way because it's, as I've said in the past, I equate it more in terms of strategy to basketball, the way the ball's moved around, and it has a very similar offensive and defensive strategy. In basketball, it's almost like you don't really think of it as being a defensive game because so many points are scored. But of course, defense is hugely important in basketball.
Oh, they make it. I mean, to get ESPN highlights if someone makes a great block.
Right.
on that. Okay, give us. Most people at least know what lacrosse is, but I don't know how many people know about the history.
Yeah, well, so the history of lacrosse is extremely fascinating to me, at least. It's it's rooted amongst Native Americans, and it's been played amongst Native Americans, dating back to modern times and before even the colonization of the United States. It was discovered by French Jesuit missionaries in the early 1600s. They observed the Native Americans playing the game. And it was really centered in the northeast part of the United States and Canada, sort of in that in that swath of land that would be the northern border of the United States, in the East Coast, and extended all the way to the western portion of the Midwest. So the West.
And before you go on, people they may be hearing, they go, Kerry Ettinger. Let's see, is he a famous lacrosse player? Why is he talking about lacrosse? Give just a brief background, like
My background.
Yeah, because you and I met, and somehow we got talking about lacrosse. I think, you know what? I've never had a guest talk about lacrosse.
Yeah.
So what's your background? Why are you here able to talk about lacrosse?
So I knew about lacrosse growing up. My father went to Hobart College in New York, which is a hotbed of lacrosse. It's they've had one of the best programs in the country for probably the last 50 years. My dad didn't play it, but he was always fascinated by the sport, and he always talked about it. And Hobart actually came out to the West Coast. I grew up in LA. Hobart came out to the West Coast and had an exhibition game against Whittier College. So I saw that game when I was young. I think I was in maybe 5th or 6th grade. But that was really my entire exposure to lacrosse. You didn't see it on TV. You really didn't see it anywhere else in the West Coast. We moved to San Diego in high school, and at the time, this was in the late 80s, early 90s, and at the time, lacrosse in California, at least, was centered in the Bay Area. There was a league in the Bay Area. There was probably about 6, 7, maybe 10 teams total, and about the same number of teams in San Diego. So those are the two leagues in California, and there were some. There was a smattering of teams in the Central Coast. So the high school that we moved to had a team, and all my football friends, all the friends on the football team also played lacrosse, and they said, "You're playing lacrosse," and I said, "Okay, cool."
Yeah, because the season doesn't overlap.
No, it's a spring sport. It kind of starts in the later part of the winter and gets going in earnest in the spring.
And what was your position?
So I played defense.
Defense, okay.
Yeah, I was a long
stick.
stick.
The big sticks.
That's right.
Oh,
We have the long sticks. That's right. Yeah. So I always have been sort of a defensive-minded athlete. I excelled in defense and football.
Is the basket the same?
The net?
The net, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Inside the crease?
Oh, listen to you.
Oh, he's got the terminology.
Smokes.
I lived with a defenseman. I lived with an attackman.
All right.
I lived with a midfielder. So
you got it all.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, I wouldn't talk about my wife now.
Lacrosse reminds me though of soccer,
Yeah.
football, and basketball.
Yes.
It's a combination of all, and hockey. It's a combination of literally every North American team sport.
It kind of is. Well, to answer your question, I think you're referring to the stick when you say the basket.
Yeah, because you're mentioning about the long stick.
Yeah,
versus
so
a shorter stick. So I'm wondering, is the basket the same? I know the goalie has a bigger one.
Right. So in general, now of course, as the game has progressed and equipment, of course, has progressed in every sport, there's definitely lots of specializations within sticks and heads and all that stuff. But by and large, without getting too into the weeds, the head itself is the same across the board except for the goalie. So you have on the lacrosse stick, you have the shaft, or the handle, and then you have the head. So the shaft is made out of usually some type of metal, and then you have the head, which is plastic and has a pocket. The head and the pocket is typically, for all intents and purposes, the same for all players except for the goalie, who has a much larger head.
And there's got to be a limit to that, otherwise you get one the size of the goal.
Yes, there's all sorts of rules about the size and all that stuff.
The pole, the stick portion. What's the size difference between a defense and
So a defensive stick can be as long as 6 feet.
Okay.
So that's what I used, a full length defensive stick, or long stick is long stick or long pole as they're referred to in the game. And then a short stick, which is what a midfielder and attackman uses. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but it's about 3.5 to 4 feet in total length.
And is there? I mean, obviously there's got to be some advantage to having a long.
There is.
I mean, just.
Yeah, there is, because it has to do with just the general theory behind defensive play. In basketball, soccer, lacrosse, any of these sort of fluid sports is the further you are from the goal, the more distance and cushion you want to have between yourself as a defenseman and the offensive player. You have an advantage because as they start to take a run and a charge, you want to be able to have that distance to be able to adjust to their movements. So as you're further from the goal, you're going to give them a little bit more room. But at the same time, you still want to be able to play defense against them. So that's why you have the longer stick. So you can make up some of that distance in reach by enabling yourself to be able to land those checks.
Okay, and when we come back from break, I want to get into some of the rules because I know you're not allowed to just whack a guy with a stick.
I want to ask Kerry too about the relationship between football and lacrosse because my father-in-law played football at Stanford, and he also played lacrosse at Stanford.
Yes.
He's a big lacrosse fan. And
Gotcha.
He was telling me there's some similarities.
All right.
There are.
We'll get into that in the break. First of all, this segment of Sports Econ 101 is sponsored by Pacific Private Money, providing mortgage investments that are currently yielding over 7.5% secured by real estate. Doesn't get any more conservative than that. Check them out at pacificprivatemoney.com. First trivia question. This is a general sports questions. And Kerry, if you know the answer, don't answer yet. When we come back from the break with it. One time I forgot to mention that. The guy answered the end. That's what your name for it.
Yeah.
Okay. What quarterback said the word genius isn't applicable in football? A genius is a guy named like Norman Einstein. I think you got hit in the head too many times.
Oh,
All right.
boy.
And I had to say
If it was a
football. Otherwise, you would say
You got us
Exactly. I was going to say, if you didn't specify the sport, I was
say
going to say
Yogi Berra. Yeah, he's a quarterback.
The Yogi
right?
Berra of football.
Exactly.
There we go.
Actually, I think this guy's probably pretty intelligent, but I think it's probably a joke. All right, stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back. It goes fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Always have a good time here.
What is the length of a short stick?
I was going to get into that because you were talking about the football lacrosse crossover. I was going to get into Jim Brown.
Yes.
Oh, yes,
Sorry
that's
for-
right. He did play lacrosse.
Yeah.
didn't
He's still
not
considered one of the best.
not just play
he?
it.
He was good at it. Yeah.
No,
He's
he's
arguably
arguably
considered
Is he
the
really?
greatest lacrosse player of all time.
Did you
Is
guys,
that
by the way,
right?
did you see that commercial with all the old timers?
Yeah.
Oh, that was my favorite.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
Yeah, the
I'm a
NFL
big-
100 commercial.
Yeah, all the old.
It's sad to think that guys like Deacon Jones weren't around to be in that commercial.
Yeah.
But Dick Butkus was
Well, Jim
there.
Brown was in it. He was
Yeah,
sitting
I
there.
saw him.
Mhm.
I saw him.
He's amazing.
He looked good.
God. I mean, he was smart. He got out of football when he was, 30? I think he was 30 years old when he retired. 42.
Jim Brown.
Yeah. I think he
Well,
was 30.
yeah, but I mean that was controversial because he was shooting the Dirty Dozen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Art Modell said, "Hey, if you're not here, we're going to fine you for every day that you're not
Yeah.
here."
Well, he knew.
And he just said, "F it, well, I'll just retire."
He
And that
didn't.
was
He
it.
didn't need the aggravation.
Yeah.
He'd already
I love that.
had
I
his
love
ring.
that
He
movie.
won his championship ring in '64.
Yeah.
So
That was the last Browns.
Yeah.
That was the last Browns
Actually, that was the last. Wasn't it the last championship for Cleveland before
the Cavaliers won it.
You know what's
Correct.
amazing though? The Cleveland Browns in the All-American Football League won, I think, 4 or 5, and
With
the
Otto.
Cleveland Browns, once they emerged with the NFL with Paul Brown,
Yeah.
won another 4 or 5, and then Jim Brown comes along and wins one more.
Yeah. Otto
So-
Graham was in it.
Yeah, pretty.
Yeah, I love that movie, The Dirty Dozen. It's amazing. I counted like 10 stars in
Yeah,
that.
oh,
It
yeah.
was Lee Marvin and all that.
Mhm.
That was a great movie.
It's a fun one.
All right. Let's answer our question. Talk a little bit more lacrosse and get into Super Bowl.
1966, 67, I think that. It
67
was filmed in
was the movie.
66 and it came out in 67. Yeah.
Along with To Sir with Love.
To Sir, I saw that the other night.
I love that movie.
Oh,
Love Sidney
To Sir with Love with Sidney Poitier. He plays a young guy who's just getting into teaching and goes into an East End
In London.
In London,
Yeah,
his
French
kids, they're
piano.
really rough kids,
Yeah.
you know. They won't listen to him, and they're disrupting classes. So he finally just throws all the books away and
Yep.
teaches them about life.
Kind of
Yeah.
like Stand By Me.
Yeah,
Kind of like
An older
that,
version.
but-
Yeah,
but
yeah.
The movie and the song by Lulu is
Yeah.
that's a great
Yeah.
song.
Not Stand By Me.
yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Yes.
Well, welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown here, along with Bruce McGowan and Vern Glenn, and our special guest, Kerry Ettinger. First trivia question was, what quarterback said the word genius isn't applicable in football? A genius is a guy like Norman Einstein.
Is it somebody fairly well known?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. I have to think.
Boy, Norman,
Until he broke his leg, and then he was really well known.
Joe Theismann.
Yeah,
Joe
Joe
Theismann.
Theismann.
there you go.
Funny.
Joe Theismann, who went to Notre Dame.
Yes, he did.
Gee.
and when he was at Notre Dame, he was Joe Theismann
Joe Theismann.
until the Heisman campaign
Oh.
started to come in. What?
I know. There we
We
go.
got it, man.
My
Yeah,
first,
no.
I got a quick trivia for you. The first Sports Illustrated I actually got with my name on the address label because my dad gave me and I still have Sports Illustrated this day. What is it, 47 years later when I was in college, was Joe Theismann on the cover leading Notre Dame to a great victory in 1970. And I can't remember
That's right,
who
he
they
came
beat.
out, right? Yeah.
He
Well,
was a senior that year. Yeah.
good player. Good player.
Good
Okay.
player, yeah.
So we have in the studio Kerry Ettinger to teach us a little bit about lacrosse. And I
You wanted to get into the rules.
Yeah,
of
that's
lacrosse, right?
Yeah.
All right, so briefly, there's really two versions of the game. There's the men's game and the women's game.
What's the difference?
Which is definitely different.
Yes.
Women's game is quote non-contact,
Yeah.
close quote.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so the men's game is a contact sport. A women's game is not contact.
So if they hit each other, there's a penalty.
There's a penalty. If,
Okay.
I mean, if it's incidental contact, there's no penalty.
Okay.
But if there's stick check to a part of the body or somewhere else where it can be deemed dangerous, and there's a lot of subjectivity in this.
Kind of like basketball, huh? With all the you can bump somebody, but you can't.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
So because women's and girls is not a contact sport, they have a flat pocket in their stick, so it's much more difficult to control the ball. So that's sort of a disadvantage that they're given because they don't have the contact. Whereas in the men's game, they have a deeper pocket because of the contact. And if they had the shallow pocket like the women, they would lose the ball during contact. So
no helmet except for the goalie.
No helmet. Yeah, in women's lacrosse, there's really no protective gear at all except for eye protection. You have these goggles that sort of look like a football face mask that covers the eyes, and a mouth guard, and that's it.
And what's the ball? Isn't made out of
same ball. It's called technically Indian rubber. It's made out of solid rubber. And the balls are the same. Although in women's lacrosse,
pretty heavy too, aren't they?
Yeah, it's slightly heavier. Yeah, it's slightly heavier than a baseball, slightly smaller than a baseball.
It hurts when you get hit with it, though.
In the ball in men's lacrosse, the fastest shooter gets up to about 100, 125 miles an hour. So that leaves a mark. I won a contest once, and I shot the ball 98 miles an hour.
Wow.
So it's when you get hit with that, and goalies do get hit with that, and the crazy thing is the goalie wears less protective equipment than any other player on the field.
Why? Just they could have to be more.
It's mobility. It's tradition. It's macho-ness. It's whatever it is. The goalie goes in there they have a chest protector, and they have a throat protector, and they have gloves, and that's all the equipment.
Someone should take out that ball and put an 8-ball in a cue ball.
Oh, man.
A pool ball. See what happens.
We had our goalie in college take a shot in the leg once, and it was a hard shot. And where he got hit with the ball, he had a sizable bruise. Yeah. But on the back of his leg, on the other side, he had this incredible black and blue mark. It was basically the size of the entire length of his thigh. It was almost like an exit wound.
Hey, I got a question. Tell me if I'm right. I don't know. I've heard this, and I read this somewhere years ago, that back in, say, the 17th century, 18th century, whatever, in South America, they'd have these games that would last for days, and the winners would put the losers into slavery or something and chop the guy's head off. Now, maybe that was a version of lacrosse and soccer. I don't know, but
you're thinking of the sport of bowling.
No, but I mean, I'm serious. I read this in a couple of different books.
Let's talk about sudden death.
Yeah. But these matches would literally go on for days.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about South America, but throughout
Central America.
Well, certainly in Northern America, where the game originated amongst the Iroquois.
Must have been a different game. Soccer or something like soccer,
So lacrosse originally, in its original incarnation, was really used amongst the Native Americans, the tribes that played it at least, for several purposes. It was oftentimes an alternative to war, so as to settle disputes amongst various tribes. It was used for recreation. And it was also used for religious purposes. But at the time, the game didn't have a formal field. It could have been anywhere from 100, 500 yards to miles long. Goals were sometimes natural features, such as trees. You could have anywhere from hundreds to hundreds of thousands of players on the field at one time. So
if you're going over a few miles,
So and people would die. I think the translation of one of the there's a few words for lacrosse in Native American depending on the tribe. Tawarton is the Mohawk word for lacrosse. Bagadaway, I forget which tribe that word comes from, but the word Bagadaway is one of the original names for lacrosse, and it meant the translation is the little brother of war. So oftentimes they would use the game of lacrosse to settle tribal disputes. And
people lacrosse is technically a French
lacrosse is the French word. So when the French Jesuits came in the 1600s and discovered the game, they called it lacrosse, which means the stick.
Better than one or two guys get killed in a game and a whole village gets wiped out, though.
That's sort of like David and Goliath, right? That's Goliath says, hey, instead of all of us going to war together, you send out your best man, I'll send out my best man, and we'll be slaves of each other.
We'll play the game. So I hadn't read about the slavery portion of it, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the rules there was no set rules for the game of lacrosse. So it was agreed upon
goes.
before the game, and
Anything goes.
here are the rules. If you win, you die, or go into slavery, or we get your land, whatever the outcome meant. So
Yeah.
Well, if there's no rules and you got that kind of situation, then you beat your opponent over the head with a stick.
and that's exactly what would happen.
Maybe that's where that saying came from, huh?
Yeah.
Beating your opponent over the head with a stick. I don't know.
But I think basically for the listeners,
Yeah.
just you give the listeners just don't know, just a sense of the two halves, how long,
Yeah.
starts with the face off,
That's
how many
right.
defensemen, how many middies, and the point and the fact that you have to really kind of pass this ball around to just set up certain plays for the attack.
Okay, so the basics of the men's game, and I'll focus on that because that's
It's the featured
It
attraction.
You're a coach. aren't you?
well, I am a coach, but I do coach the girls' game.
Okay,
So, yeah,
that's fine.
yeah.
Fair enough.
I'm coaching my daughter's U8 team,
There
so
you go.
very high level lacrosse here in Central Marin.
I should mention the highest ranked lacrosse college in California, I believe, is Stanford at rank number 17
Mm.
on the West Coast.
Stanford's women's.
Stanford women.
Yes,
Yes.
There are no California
men's
programs.
teams.
Yeah, in fact, there are no California NCAA Division I men's programs in California.
Wow.
The furthest West Coast men's program is University of Utah, and they this is their first year as an NCAA
Wow.
program. So prior to that, it was your alma mater. It was your
Yeah,
alma mater.
yeah.
DU
Well,
was
the
the
thing is,
DU
if
was the
it's a
furthest west.
spring or summer type sport, you would think that California would have a good
Yeah.
team. I mean, I understand like hockey being a cold weather is not as big
Yeah.
out here.
Well,
Well, it's a
but-
cultural thing, you know.
Yeah.
It's an East Coast sport, but that's the thing about lacrosse. It's amazing. As I mentioned, my background, I played in high school and college, and at the time, it was one of the things that was attractive to me. It was this niche sport. It was not a lot of people knew about it. It was really cool. Like
You're a
people
big fish in a small pond.
yeah, people who played it. It was just this really great cultural thing about it. It's like, wow, this is mine. This is something that not a lot of people know about. It feels exclusive, but at the same time, it's an amazing, amazing sport. So it's really grown from, as I mentioned, there were maybe 25 high school programs when I played.
And you got to be in good shape. You don't see too many 400-pounders in there playing.
No.
Unless they're covering the whole goal.
But now you'd be hard pressed to find a high school that doesn't have a program in California.
Yeah, that's
Now we have little leagues all over the state.
and even the smaller schools. Like my daughter went to the Bay School in San Francisco, which is a really small private high school, and they have a lacrosse team.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean it's grown just even in the last 20 years. It's grown immensely, and you have all sorts of, certainly within women's lacrosse, you have a ton of Division I programs here in California. USC is a top program. Stanford's a top program. Cal has a Division I program. My alma mater, UC Davis, was one of the first to go Division I back in the mid 90s.
Yeah, the Team USA women's lacrosse team, they were just here.
They were just here.
Playing
Unfortunately, I had to miss it because I went skiing, but I had to go skiing. I know.
Yeah.
First world problems.
Boy, I guess lacrosse must pay a lot of money teaching women underage.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. No, I unfortunately I missed that game, but we had some of the best lacrosse players in the world here in Stanford, and it was, from what I understand, it was an amazing experience, and it was a good opportunity to see some of these amazing players out here in California.
And for the listeners out there, the Heisman Trophy equivalent is the Tewaaraton
The Tewaaraton,
See,
that's
look
right.
at this.
Award,
Yeah.
right?
Holy
Yeah,
smokes,
that's
you
given
know
out
about
to
this.
the best player,
Yeah, the best
women's
men.
and men's
That's right.
in college lacrosse.
You know, I wonder if there are any women who could compete in the men's.
No, because it's a different type of game.
It's really
Non-contact
The
or
style of
whatever.
play is totally different. However, there are some variations of the game, some really cool variations of the game. So one of the challenges with a game like lacrosse, and this is something that the sport is really taking on, is how to make it more accessible to more people. So traditionally, as the game has grown in the United States, it's been sort of a, I'm doing my air quotes, you can't see on the radio, but it's been a prep school sport. I mean, that's really where the game kind of took its root in the
like
East
rowing,
Coast.
you know?
Yeah, and so it's got that stigma to it, just in how it originated.
Okay. Hold that thought.
Yeah.
We're gonna cut to a break. Come back, talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
And get
Got
on
to talk
to
about
the-
Jim Brown too.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a little teaser into the commercial break. What does Jim Brown have to do with lacrosse?
Okay. Second trivia question. 12 new footballs sealed in a special box are opened in the officials' locker room 2 hours prior to the start of an NFL game. These balls are marked with what letter and what is their purpose? That's kind of interesting. Stay with us. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back. Kind of a different kind of question.
Yeah.
Well, I know about the K balls, but I thought that each team brings 24 balls of their own that they practice with during the week. And in the old days, the manufacturer used to ship the balls directly to the officials, and it was up to the officials to, rub them down and scuff them up and get them ready. But the teams complained, especially quarterbacks, because they couldn't get the grip on the ball, because there's coating over the ball when it comes right from the manufacturer.
There was a good article in Sports Illustrated a couple weeks ago that was really hard to read. It was about how they manufacture the balls, at the cows, the slaughtering of the steers, and how they take the hide and process it. It was just like, if you can get by the first part of slaughtering the animal and cutting, then you can. It's interesting, but it was like,
so it's not a pig skin.
No,
not anymore.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, ready? There we go. Well, welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan and Vern Glenn. Second trivia question was 12 new footballs sealed in a special box are opened in the officials' locker room 2 hours prior to the start of an NFL game. These balls are marked with what letter and what is their purpose?
I'm gonna guess K-ball.
That is correct. What does it stand for?
Kicker.
Yes.
Interesting thing about real
kicking.
quickly, interesting thing about footballs back in the day, and I'm not sure if they referred to them, and they actually had written on the ball the Duke, and I'm not sure where that came from, but NFL footballs always had the Duke written on the ball itself.
So either not from John Wayne and not from from Duke.
This is back in the 60s.
Hawaii.
This is back in the 60s and through the 70s and even into the 80s, and I'm not sure if they do that anymore.
Although John Wayne did play football for USC in the 1920s.
Okay, Jim Brown. What does he have to do with lacrosse?
Oh, there you go.
Jim Brown, regarded as the greatest lacrosse player ever, also the greatest football player ever. He played at Syracuse in the early 1950s.
One of the greatest programs ever.
He was a midfielder, and he was just an unstoppable force. And the job of the midfielder is to sprint from one end to the other and set up for a goal. But he just was so large and so imposing, nobody could stop him. And there wasn't a regulation stick size rule, so he would cut down his stick to about close to like his elbow, and he would just have it like viewers can't see it, but he would just play the ball close to his vest. How are you going to get the ball from? You're not. And he would just go in front of the goal, rev back, boom, goal.
Wow,
interesting.
Yeah,
his own style there.
Yeah,
very cool. All right, so can we move on to football?
Sure. We can segue to that. Oh, wait! Before we do that, is it going to be Yale and Duke again? What do you think?
Yale's the preseason #1.
They are
and,
the defending national champions.
That's right.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. They
Well,
got an exciting team. I'd like to see Albany get back in there. They've got an exciting team. They lost a few players last year, but
how about my DU Pioneers?
DU is ranked high. DU's got that's an amazing coup within the lacrosse world. I mean, they got Coach Tierney, who was extremely successful at Princeton, one of the most winning coaches of all time. Won, I don't know how many national championships with Princeton, but they were huge in the late 90s and early 2000s. I think they won maybe 5 national championships.
Yeah.
Then he went over to DU and bulked up that program, and they won a national championship. So
speaking of bulked up, I made that. You brought up Albany. There was like the big off-season transfer. TD Ireland. He was a big time scorer. He's transferred from Albany to Duke, I believe.
He was their face-off guy.
And his brother Chase is a goalie for Cornell.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Moving on to football.
Yeah.
First of all, I notice, even though it's not the right colors, you have a Saints hat on, or at least the fleur de lis.
This is the Florida. Again, sorry, we're alienating the audience on this one, but I'm wearing a beanie. Okay, there's a fleur-de-lis on it.
Yeah.
But these are the school colors of my high school, the St. Christopher Saints.
Gotcha. Okay, because I'll tell you what's
not
funny.
The New Orleans
Okay,
Saints.
so my daughter goes to Tulane. It was just in New Orleans, right? And she said it's really funny. She says they were so upset about the game, the national championship game,
The non-call.
the
The
non-call.
NFC title
Yeah,
against
exactly.
the Rams. Yeah.
She said all of the bars are boycotting. That you can see, all the bars are boycotting the Super Bowl, and they're replaying the 2010 Saints victory Super Bowl.
Yeah, why not?
I can understand
Sure,
it.
I get it.
too.
I
Okay,
can
and so
understand it.
Completely get it.
no, I saw Twitter. I don't read. Someone showed me a Twitter thing. So during the game at halftime, the score was Patriots 3, Rams 0, Maroon 5. I thought that was pretty good.
That's great.
And it's funny. I was noticing this. Did you see anyone kneeling during the national anthem?
No,
I didn't
did not.
either.
No.
And I didn't know if there was,
No.
someone had
No.
said something ahead of time,
No.
or if that was just.
You know what was good about the NFL? They didn't have any political figures at the game. It was all entertainment. It was all. They stayed away from politics, which was smart.
Yeah.
I'll give
Especially
Roger
with
Goodell
football.
some credit. I'm not a big fan of Roger Goodell, but he was smart enough to say, "Hey, in this volatile time in which we live, let's give our citizens a break."
Well, and
from-
also let's not take away from the players in the game.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
They're there to play football.
I'm just curious. Let's just take a little poll, and I'll start. We'll just go around the room. Favorite part of the game, favorite
Oh,
aspect of the game. For me,
Yeah.
it was Tony Romo,
yeah.
because Tony Romo, he can just forecast. He just from the booth. He was the color analyst. He could just tell you what's going to happen, and he would explain why it happened, and he would put it in terms that anybody could understand.
It was almost
I
almost
thought-
like he was a quarterback.
He's turned out to be one of the best
He re-
athletes to get into.
He
the
really is on it.
has.
He really is.
He's truly found his calling.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the guy was a decent quarterback.
He
He
was.
didn't go to a
Yeah.
Super Bowl, but
No.
he's become a. Chris Collinsworth was the same way.
Yeah.
He was a very good player in Cincinnati. He became a very good analyst.
Bruce, what was your favorite part of the game?
My favorite part of the game, I think, is just the last 5 minutes and not knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it was still up in the air. I had a feeling that the Patriots were going to win because the Rams just weren't able to move the ball. But there were a couple of times they got down deep in the New England territory. So yeah, I mean, it was exciting and close at the end. That's all I'd like
I mean,
to see.
even Brady looked a little shaky with some of his throws and all that. But
Well, he got hit a few
Well,
times
yeah.
too.
Rams got a pretty good
Yeah.
defense.
Yeah.
Rams got a really good
I
defense.
mean, they held them to 13 points and they still lost.
On that scoring drive where the Rams did score a touchdown, they ran the same play 3 times with 3 different scenarios, 3 different reads, have you, and they were able to matriculate the ball down the field.
Yeah.
And then I give Brady credit when he had to, he threw a dime right on the money to Gronkowski
Right.
inside the
Yeah.
5, and then scored a play.
I thought it was so cool that Gronkowski and Edelman in particular,
He was
the
good, yeah.
smallest guy in the field from our area, Woodside, California.
Yeah.
And I think he went to junior college.
we went to Woodside.
Yeah.
Woodside High School, Redwood City.
Yeah. But he made, 10 or 11 catches? And then
Yeah,
Gronkowski makes 3 catches, and the biggest one set up the touchdown. I think that was wonderful.
Yeah.
Funny how nobody pointed out the fact that Edelman missed the first 4 games of the season for PEDs. But
No,
Yeah.
I did hear that, but I'm trying to remember where I heard that.
He missed an
anyway,
entire season, too. Was it last year or the year before that he was out? Well, I hate to say it, football, I mean, back in the 70s when I was a kid covering it into my 20s, and I loved covering the Oakland Raiders. I traveled with them and got to go to a lot of games. And Vernon, you were here for the last part of the 49ers, and I got to be a part of, going to those games regularly. These guys had to be doing PEDs. I mean, football players.
Oh, come on, Lyle Alzado.
Come on. Yeah. No, they had to. Unfortunately, and I'm not saying they had to, but to survive and go out there and play every week and be tough, I mean, you can only be in the weight room for so long. The beating these guys give each other on the field. I know lacrosse is tough, but football, constant
Well,
smashing.
and again, the rules have changed to make it
Yeah.
less contact.
Yeah.
What was it like? Defensive player, defenseless, hitting a defenseless player. The guy's got the ball. How are you
The players, though,
defenseless?
are bigger and faster and stronger and maybe smarter than they've ever been.
I'd like to know our guest's favorite part of the game.
Yeah.
Growing up as a Rams fan,
Mm.
it was seeing those throwback unis in the Super Bowl. I mean, that was exciting for me. When I was a Rams fan as a kid and before the Raiders came to LA, we never got to see the Rams in those uniforms go to the Super Bowl, and just seeing those uniforms and that team in the Super Bowl was pretty special for me. It kind of brought me back to my childhood, and unfortunately, it didn't work out the way I would have preferred it to, and it's always a problem losing.
There's always next year.
It's always a problem losing to the Patriots. I'm never a big fan of losing to the Patriots, so I wasn't.
And it's so
stoked on
funny
the outcome,
because
but-
when the Patriots beat the Rams the first time,
17 years ago.
yeah, everybody was like all excited. They were so anti-Rams and so pro. Oh, this is so cool that finally New England wins. And now it's just happened so much.
Well,
that
in
now-
those days, the Rams they were the greatest show on turf.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And they won
Kurt
the
Warner.
one the previous year, the great game against the Titans.
Yeah.
That was the last Super Bowl I got to cover, and it was probably the best Super Bowl I ever saw.
Yeah, so it was cool for me just seeing the LA Rams in those
Yeah.
uniforms in the Super
See,
Bowl. That really brought me back to my
you were too
childhood.
young to remember the one that they lost to Pittsburgh. And even though I was a 49er fan, I was not an anti-Ram fan. You know, I liked Roman Gabriel and all that. And boy, gosh,
At the Rose Bowl, by the way, they played almost a home game.
Yeah.
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 Here's
Yeah.
a question for you.
Yeah.
Given the fact that it was 13-3,
Yep.
who was the last LA player to score a touchdown in a Super Bowl?
Vince Ferragamo?
No.
No, it would have been
Kurt Warner?
would have been
Marcus Allen,
Marcus.
LA
Oh,
Raiders.
LA Raiders.
1984 against the Redskins.
That's right.
right.
Oh, that's
Good.
funny. Well, you know, it's, so we do one of those pools with all the squares, right?
Mhm.
And my sister-in-law, she chose as the combo for the final score, the number 17, because she figured you don't want to be over. Me, I chose 72, and I was in between someone at 71 and 72.
Right,
It wasn't going to be impossible to win. Well, she won every quarter.
Good for her.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Good
that
for her.
and that missed field goal cost me $100.
Oh, jeez.
And then what were you saying?
I feel
Nobody-
so sorry for you.
Thank you very much. I could use that $100. Okay, then you write me the check. Didn't you say that there was not a single?
There was
missed
not a
field?
single field goal missed during the regular season by any kicker in that stadium.
How many?
Yeah,
I wonder how many there was.
8 games.
and-
Eight games.
You know how many kicks?
I don't know. I think it was 20, 26
That's
or 27.
amazing.
Yeah. No, they had that stat just as Erline was lining up. I remember thinking, oh, this is a sure thing then,
Yeah, and Jim Nantz read it off the screen,
Yeah.
and then Tony Romo got on him for we said,
Yeah.
oh man, you just jinxed it,
Yeah,
and
and
the kicker
sure
missed the
enough.
kick.
And it's funny because I'm thinking, when Zerline was kicking, he's probably going, yeah, 8 seconds left. We're not going to, be able to score a touchdown. I don't know what's going through because he missed it by a long shot.
Kind of fitting that he missed because he was 57. Was it 57-yarder that tied New
Yeah.
Orleans and set up the overtime?
Yeah.
And then he kicked the game winner there. So kind of fitting. Hey, listen, you get some, you lose some. I don't feel sorry for the Rams. They got to the Super Bowl for crying out loud.
Yeah.
They
I don't
weren't
feel
even
sorry.
supposed to be
No,
there.
I don't feel sorry for
No.
him.
Look at it next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a decent team
Yeah.
still to build around.
That's what Dan Marino kept saying. He went to one Super Bowl. The Dolphins got killed by the Niners, and they never got back to one with him as quarterback. So you never know.
I believe 6-1 odds now for the Rams to make it back.
Yeah.
Pretty
With
good
that,
odds.
with that defense, and Jared Goff is still a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah, now he's got the
And he's
butterflies
got
out.
he's got Super Bowl experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the TV side, on Sunday, I had to report from Novato at one of the Jared Goff /Rams watch parties. So I was in Novato just all day and all night.
That must have been fun.
It was fun watching the highs and the lows of the crowd, just
Yeah.
like screaming at the screen, and it got louder as the libations were really flowing.
Of course.
And did they say, some people were saying that Belichick should have gotten the most valuable player,
I was watching Vernon, by the way. He was keeping up the energy and the enthusiasm right up until the end because I picked up your report after, and the place had emptied out. There were still a few people hanging out.
Yeah, there were a few.
Got
Yeah.
some great interviews there.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the mayor of Novato came down.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he was nice enough to join us, on our little post game show. So it was, it all worked out. Novato didn't get what they wanted, Goff's hometown, but again, I mean, it's a really, really young team.
Yeah,
They're expected to be right. Yeah, he's 24 years old.
What is
Yeah.
that for New England to go back? You said it was 6-1.
8-1.
Interesting.
And Coach McVay is only 33.
Yeah.
He's gonna be around for a while.
And I'll give McVay credit because everybody like a shark wanted to go after Goff. The stage is too big and all this kind of stuff. But McVay, true, mature head coach for him, said, no, put that one on me. I got out-coached by Bill Belichick.
Good for him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, again, we
I
forget that McVay's granddad was the architect, one of the architects who put the 49ers
Built the
together.
49ers.
John
That's right.
McVay.
Why
John
am I
McVay.
thinking, come on, guys, do something like a flea flicker, just something, or a fake punt, something to just do something different rather than run the ball twice, throw on third down. It's just like, come on. I can't stand when people just don't think outside the box.
Well, they probably were, but the problem is that New England probably would have figured it out.
Okay, well then, but you gotta try something.
Edward, there's 200 some odd plays on that play sheet. I mean, if if a flea flicker was there, they would have tried the flea
Pick
flicker.
the one that's gonna win. Hello, it's like it's like if I'm when I was
Typical fan.
yeah, when
Okay.
I was a third base coach.
It's so easy for somebody to say next to their beer and their guacamole.
But it's good. If everyone isn't like this, and he isn't that
That's right.
enthusiastic about it in the game.
Listen, when I was
Right.
a third base coach and the batter would look at me for a sign, I give him the home run swing. That's it. I want you to hit a home run. That's what I want
Yeah,
you to
just
do.
do something awesome.
That's right. Okay, here's our third
How
trivia
about the
question.
commercials? $5 million at 30 seconds.
Ooh.
Crazy. Okay, get this.
That's
Okay,
nuts.
if you had to wait
That's
for
nuts.
season tickets for this NFL team today, you would have to wait almost 1,000 years before receiving one. Which team?
Ooh.
Right? Don't touch that down. We're gonna be right back with some closing comments.
Wow, the waiting list that long.
Packers.
That was my back. That was Packers.
We'll let you answer that. Yep, that's right.
The only team that doesn't have an owner. It's got
Yeah,
the fans.
it's-
on it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sugar Bowl is the Packers of the ski world.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. There you go.
It's owned by. I was just having this conversation with some friends because we're
I
trying to
didn't know
decide where
that.
to ski tomorrow. Yeah, it's owned
Oh,
by.
you're talking about this. Yeah.
Sorry, the
that's
ski hill.
right.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a little
I love
obscure,
Sugar
but
Bowl.
very
Yeah,
current
yeah.
for me because we're going skiing
Oh,
tomorrow.
sweet.
The thing I like about Sugar Bowl is the closest one to us.
That's close.
Yeah.
To Yeah.
But the big ones. Yeah.
That's owned by. It's not owned by a big corporation. It's owned by a group of homeowners.
Is that right?
That's what I got.
Wow. Has it been that way forever?
It was started by Walt Disney, and he was the original. He was the original
That's why-
investor and owner. That's why now
Disney. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have Donald Duck as one of the ones. And,
It's one of the first places
Now
I
that-
was skiing. I used to ski a lot until I was about 40. The crowds
I
and
know.
it's just
such a
it's,
difference.
I can't believe how much they charge.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
It's insane.
I know. My skiing days may be
$170 a
over.
swap.
That's
Like
ridiculous.
before the snowmobile accident, the day before we were skiing, it was all ice because it was like 8 degrees outside. And then it's like, this isn't fun. This is dangerous and I'm going to get hurt.
When skiing's fun, it's amazing. When it's not fun, it's just.
Yeah.
You
It's
have
like,
to.
why did I bring my family here to deal with
Yeah.
all this
Yeah,
logistical
exactly.
crap and spend all this money?
I think you have to live. I mean, when I was going to school in Denver, we were only an hour's drive.
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
Loveland
that's
Pass,
different, yeah.
So that's a different story.
Yeah, I had a very expensive and painful vacation over New Year's.
How's your shoulder doing?
What's my shoulder?
Your elbow.
It's elbow. It's slowly. I'm going to physical therapy on
Okay, man.
Thursday.
You're in your
Yeah,
mid-50s
but I'm
still.
I know. That's the well. No, I'm 50. I'm 59.
You're
I'm this
50.
many.
You were born in 61, huh?
60.
60. Okay.
Yeah, just right. Yeah, but most of the
That's the year
bruising's gone.
JFK got elected.
That's right.
That's right.
But yeah, I was born under Eisenhower.
Yeah, that's right.
You
I
were
was born under Truman.
That was the first year of the AFL.
That's right.
1960.
1960.
Houston Oilers.
Houston Oilers.
Okay,
Oakland
right.
Raiders.
That's
Who
right.
played their first year at Kezar Stadium.
Houston
Sorry.
Texans before they became the Kansas City Chiefs.
That's right. Then back to the Texans again.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Close this bad boy out. Well, welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan and Vern Glenn, and our special guest, Kerry Ettinger. Third trivia question was, if you had to wait for season tickets for this NFL team today, you would have to wait almost 1,000 years before receiving one. Which team? Kerry, you know the answer.
That would be the Green Bay Packers.
It would be the Green Bay Packers.
I was going to say New Orleans, but New Orleans, I bet you sells that every game, don't they?
I would think so.
Well, you can sell it every game, but geez, just think of how long the Packers have been around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Here's a little
Original.
interesting tidbit, to me at least. So a buddy of mine in high school who I played football with went on to play at USC, and then he won a Super Bowl for the Green Bay Packers with Brett Favre.
Wow.
Yeah.
Offensive
Who
lineman,
was it?
John Michaels.
John Michaels.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Offensive lineman.
Trying to remember. Yeah, that's the thing.
See, the offensive linemen are the most important
No.
people on the field.
Yes,
they
are.
really are.
Yeah.
They really are.
Unfortunately, only lasted a few years in the NFL. They had knee issues and
Yeah.
went on to the Eagles. But yeah,
Those
that's
guys-
as close as I got to fame and stardom.
Those guys get the what kicked out of them.
Yeah.
Well, that's what all the injured players, they always go to Philadelphia after.
Yeah.
And for TV, they're the best interviews on the
Yeah,
team.
Tom Brookshire, Irv Cross. That's going way back, but those are two former Philadelphia Eagles who were big, iconic television football broadcasters in the 70s and 80s.
Ah,
Yeah.
I was a Norm Brand Brooklyn fan myself.
Yeah.
A little before my time, but
He was a little bit of a hard drinker.
that's what I heard.
Yeah.
It was good. Okay. All right, guys, we're going to close this out. So here's our closing thoughts for the day here. Love doesn't make the world go round. Love is what makes the ride worthwhile.
Mm.
And when you feel no one cares or loves you, everyone is ignoring you, and people are jealous of you, ask yourself, am I too sexy? I know, Vern, you ask yourself that every time.
No, sure.
What do you come up with these anyway? Man?
And always answer yourself yes.
That's right. That's right. Don't forget to answer it. Well, Kerry Ettinger, thank you so much for teaching us about lacrosse.
Absolutely.
Very
Good
cool.
stuff, Kerry.
Iroquois.
Iroquois.
Which actually, apparently,
Yeah.
Kerry said is not one specific tribe.
Yeah,
It's a
the
group of tribes.
Iroquois Nation is a group of 5 tribes, and there's actually a 6th tribe that makes up what is now representing the Iroquois Nation. And the Iroquois Nation actually is a nation in and of itself in World Games.
Wow.
Very cool. Okay, tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more sports trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Good night, America.
So long. On that's the show.
Good show.
Cool.
Good job, guys.
That was awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kerry.
Yeah.
I got another one of these robocalls. I'm getting them all the time.
Yeah.
You are being wanted by the IRS.
Is that what that says?
Oh yeah, they call you up and you call them back and you hear
yeah.
some guy who's speaking in a usually an Indian accent from Pakistan.
I grew up in LA and San Diego.
Alien City.
Yeah.
Because
And
I
you
was
try to
seeing-
talk
I
to
was
them and
seeing where
it's like, I play along with it. I play this little game.
Torrey Pines is
Yeah.
that's like
Going.
Torrey Pines is
top,
kind of joking. They got a
uh,
great program.
yeah.
Take away
My alma mater,
everything
I went to Lowell High School.
I gave the phone to my daughter. She was,
They're
please
top
don't put my
for
daddy
the
in
Division
jail.
One in San Diego.
What did the guy say?
And then,
Oh, he was having a big. He was having a. It was for him. It was kind of
top
fun because
what's
90%
called
of the time,
So they
when
had
they talk to
they
somebody,
created this
which
division
is
that was even
pretty rare anyway. Because
higher than Division One because they had
They
to
get
get a
people
quality
to just
team. So Poway's always been a
curse
powerhouse
So,
in San Diego.
Yeah.
Torrey
So
Pines
the guy played along with it?
and the,
Yeah, they got nothing better to do.
Yeah.
I called back several times. I said, I know you're.
we used to play
gay.
against
I'm
them. They were
coming
good
back.
back then, but not
So that I meant that was a mistake because then I got hit.
They weren't what they were.
Gotcha.
Numerous
Yeah, when I was
because they wanted to get their
I was in
revenge.
Virginia.
Well, also, what I've done sometimes, they
I
go,
live
keep
with,
talking. So I said, I've
I
got
live
you.
with an
I'm
attacker and a
reporting this, I'm
midfielder.
giving it to the Attorney General. They don't care. You know, 'cause
and
they can't get
yeah,
them.
they-
No, you can't
Yeah,
throw them in
Jim's always been
Pakistan
one
or
of the
wherever
top,
they
right?
are.
They're 6 now, but they were, you know,
So then the guy said,
they were
well, if you
powerful.
don't want to go to jail, give me your credit card number.
You know, it's funny. You kind of
But you know what's funny?
see.
You know what you should do one time? When it,
Give them a fake one.
You
There's
just
a lot
do
of,
it. No,
obviously,
do it. Well, yeah, of
there's
course, but do it really
lacrosse,
fast.
So
though.
you see a lot of the
Okay,
same
I know, I gotta make
teams
this
that are
fast
always
because I gotta run.
represented
My number
in the top
467
10.
too
But what's
far.
nice is you
Like,
start to see a lot of new
right?
teams that
You got
have
that?
been there
And
in
it
the
expires
past.
less than
You know, Albany's been
Yeah,
a
all right.
powerhouse as of late, which is
And I'm like, what?
The only problem is if I do this, I know I've done this before. They'll call me back and then get 5 or 6 more calls. My wife says, just don't answer the phone.
So you're starting to see a lot more
The problem
diversity.
is sometimes
Yeah.
I don't answer the phone. And I wish I did because if somebody I actually want to talk to, even though I didn't recognize the phone number.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
We, I stopped. I
Don't
hadn't
hang
played
up.
since
This is not a
college.
sales
They
call.
let both
Really?
me now that
You're not gonna
my
ask
kids
me
are
for
getting into
anybody,
it, I started
right?
coaching them.
Thanks for the diversion.
Before I worked here in this market, I worked in Baltimore.
Yeah, she's
Oh,
doing
yeah.
okay.
So,
Nothing
so
to do
we,
with
so we,
cancer.
so we
Just
had
that
to
she-
cover
I think I told you
Hopkins,
she wanted to
Maryland,
have
Loyola,
that.
all the
But she's
time.
gonna
Yeah.
take a month off.
And even the high
I'm
school
thinking, this
programs
poor
are my,
thing, you know?
Boys
She's
Latch,
through-
Gilman,
never
So yeah,
done
boys
that.
Calvert Hall.
That's
My
amazing.
She's staying with her
yeah,
folks
exactly.
because it's easier because they can be with her all the
grandparents
time.
lived
And I got
in
Molly
my
till
grandfather's passed away,
tonight,
my
and then I'm gonna
grandmother
drop her off
still
because I gotta
lives
work at night.
Gotcha.
But it's
she
just
lives
like,
in an apartment complex
so glad she's
that
taking a month
over
off.
this adjacent to
Yeah.
Boys Latin.
Mhm.
So I go visit
And you
them
know
even
what?
when I was in
Her
college.
job is changing too. They
And
downsized her job. She's actually
their balcony
it's actually
literally
working
overlooked
out-
their practice
gonna work
field,
out
so I just
okay.
watched them play lacrosse, watch them
it's gonna
practice,
be a
and
little
I
less
was like
crazy.
Good.
just blown away by
Well, if they
high
can,
school program,
I mean,
how good they
if
were.
she's
Compared
in
to
that
college
space,
programs,
just stay in that
Just-
space with
just
her.
perfectly
Yeah,
That's
grounded
really good for her.
skills.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
trying.
my-
I'm
yeah.
just
trying
those
to work
skills,
it
some of
out.
the skills that we
I gotta see a shrink.
struggled with in the
I
West
talked to my
Coast
friends
because
about
the
it,
game
but I
had
really
really developed so much.
have
That would
good
just
with
be
Yeah,
getting
just
a therapist
passing,
would really
catching all that
There's,
stuff
if you
was
want,
just
if you ever wanted someone.
never dropped
No,
ball.
I got one through
Yeah.
Kaiser. She's
Yeah, it
good.
was really
Oh,
amazing.
okay.
We've had a
To
couple
watch
in person, and she
see
wants
how
to get in
lacrosse
touch with
has
me on the phone, and
matured in the
she called me the other day. I was
East
going
Coast,
to
now to see
because
kind
my
of
heart thing.
all
I was
that
having
maturity
something
of
checked
the
out
game
that.
come
She
to
called
the
right
West
in the middle
Coast
of
and
the
develop that
the
here.
appointment. I said,
Pretty awesome.
my bad. I said it.
Especially since I was somewhat,
forgot because I was out walking the
I wasn't
dogs. Or
following
something,
the
and
game
life
for
was so
about 20
busy.
years.
Yeah.
It's like,
when I played in college, and now
But,
I'm
I
back
mean,
into
we
it.
go through these
It's
things
amazing
in
to
our
come
lives
back into
where
it and
things
see
just
how much
sort of crazy.
Yeah, now the East Bay.
Well,
boys.
my
Fierce
neighbor
rivalries
is a
out
really
there.
nice lady.
Monte Vista,
She,
San
she's
Ramon
not
Valley,
90,
she just always duking it out, and then
So she had like heart attack.
SI is
and now they
good.
got hospice.
Yeah,
yeah.
She's coming
It's-
out of it.
it's awesome.
blind
And we got some
and
good
stuff.
teams
You
out
know,
there.
right down the street, Marin Academy. Right down the
You
street.
think it gets
They got
easier, you get
great
older,
programs.
it's actually, in some respects, it does get easier because,
I don't know if they won or not.
you know, you realize
they
what's really
got a
important
strong
in
program.
life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
strong
part
program.
was easy. And also,
It's, you know,
if you're
it's
smart,
awesome.
you simplify
In
your
the past,
life. You
you're
don't
like, oh wow, this
get all
class
wrapped
was
up in all the
amazing.
nonsense.
Exactly.
This thing that you knew about that
Still,
nobody knew
I
about.
was
So
just
then when
reading
you
about
saw it, it was like,
the guy that I
oh,
knew
there's that
died
thing
in
I'm going
93.
into.
It was like,
There's
oh,
someone
he
there.
had a
Look at
great
that.
life.
There's a guy winning
What a
Lacrosse
great
shirt.
life, you know?
Now it's
Well,
just
that's the
like
thing
my
is,
dad
I
still
want to
points
be
out.
able
He'll call me up and
to
say, "Hey, I saw
be
someone
like
wearing a
these
Lacrosse shirt
people
today."
who, when
No,
they get
Dad, it's not like it was 20
older,
years ago.
grandkids, and to be able
But
to
he
kind of
still
go,
gets
you know,
really
like,
excited when he sees
Excited
someone
about
wearing
it.
oh, I
a
just
Lacrosse.
got one of my clients like that.
He'll go to
She's
people. We
like,
were getting folks
I
to know
think she's
there about a
91
year
or
ago.
something,
There was a
right?
kid
Still with
wearing a
it and
Lacrosse
everything.
shirt.
Still got our marbles
They
together.
still got marbles,
Yeah.
and what she
Yeah.
talks about,
And my dad's like,
oh, my
that's
kids
cool,
are
my
great,
son
my
played
grandkids.
lacrosse.
She goes, there's not a
Like,
dog
I
in
am,
in the
you know,
one of them.
45-year-old guy. My
And I
dad's
thought,
like,
you
my
know
son
what? I
played
just really got
lacrosse. I'm like,
into what she had to
hey.
say. I thought, what a
The kid's
great way
like,
to live
totally
your life, just not with
not
no
impressed.
regrets
Right.
of oh man, this kid he's a
like
drug
saying to
addict, or
somebody
this kid
now,
is
"Oh, you
he's a
play baseball?
murderer or
My
anything
son
like
played
that. To be able
baseball."
to kind of go, you know what?
Yeah.
Everybody plays
Well,
baseball.
you know what you have to do, and you
Yeah.
just have to accept the fact that there's going to be some ups and downs. That's just the way
Yeah.
it is. It's like that's why I love sports so much. You know, the winning and the losing. It's
Yeah.
part of life.
No, I want to win all the time. I do not want to lose.
I feel sorry. You know, Tiger Woods. Think about how hard he fell, and he's coming.
yeah.
I think it's such a great story that he's
Yeah.
coming back. He may not be even close to what he was, but for him to come back through all the adversity he's been through or put himself through,
Yeah.
that's a great story.
I couldn't imagine. I just when he was on top, I couldn't imagine living his life.
Oh my God!
I mean,
Yeah.
when he
He was so
opens the door and walks out the door,
yeah.
Yeah.
he's Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just couldn't imagine having to be on like
Did
that.
you ever interview him,
all the-
Vernon?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've only met him once, and it was in the press box at Stanford, and there was almost a regal quality to him. It was almost like talking to Joe Montana or some of these guys that are just up at a high level. He just seemed to be above it all, you know.
Yeah.
That's kind of tough too, because like
Yeah, we got him when he first got to Stanford.
Yeah.
When he first got to Stanford, we got him then, and then
Yeah,
and then just kind of follow him as he kind of
you can see he
evolved.
was
And
special.
he's you know he's I mean he changed, right? I mean once what's the big corporate that represents? It's not IMG. Is it IMG? Maybe it is IMG. Once they got him, they completely like corporatized him. And so he would never say anything controversial. He played both sides. You know.
That's
It's-
too bad.
That's the thing about the celebrities or even in sports or movies.
I think they're the
or
one.
something like
I think they're the ones that said, "Look, you got to get married. You got to have some kids. Got to they're like building his
what, as though we needed the
profile.
money, you know, or something. But
Yeah.
that's why it's like, you know,
his image."
these poor people, like some of the, let's say the women who were like just absolutely gorgeous models and stuff, they never know who's really a friend or who.
No, they don't,
is-
because they're always. We were talking about this with my daughter. She has a friend who this girl looks like
Oh, that's right.
she's like Brooke.